Hello, in this video I want to talk about coercive control, what it is, why narcissists and other manipulators use it, how it's described, how it affects the victim over time, and finally, with regards to divorce, there'll be tips at the end on how to divorce the emotional abuser. Hello, my name's Elizabeth Goddard from the Divorce Sanctuary. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse, divorcing both emotionally and physically from the emotional abuser. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. And thank you so much to all of my new subscribers over the last few weeks. It's amazing. Thank you for your support. So in this video, I want to talk about coercive control. It's described as an act or a pattern of assault carried out through forms of threats, intimidation, humiliation. Coercive control is emotional abuse, and it's used to harm and punish and frighten a victim. This form of behaviour is used to make the victim dependent on the abuser, isolating them from friends and family. They exploit them and deprive them of their independence, regulate their everyday behaviour. Coercive or controlling behaviour does not relate to one single incident. It's a pattern that occurs over time, used for one individual to exert power and control over another. Coercive or controlling behaviour is now a crime in the UK, and the law came into force on the 29th of December 2015. People are now being charged with this offence. Not many at the moment. And some cases, old cases, are being reviewed, like Sally Challens, who walked free from court and is now being used as a landmark case. In Sally's case, coercive control was not a crime in England and Wales when she was sentenced to life imprisonment. And following the change in the law, Justice for Women submitted new grounds for appeal in 2017. These were refused by the judge. But in February 2019, Harriet Wistrich asked for Sally's conviction to be overturned. Following the hearing, she was released in April and on conditional bail. In June 2019, prosecutors accepted Sally's plea of manslaughter. At this stage, Sally had served 8 years and 10 months. Her retrial was later dropped. Coercive control creates invisible chains. People might ask why you didn't leave earlier or why you didn't see what was going on. On some level you did. You did know that there was something wrong with the relationship. However, during this cycle of abuse, there was a point where you lost who you were, and your focus was more about protecting the relationship than it was protecting yourself. It's these invisible chains that stopped you from walking away. The fake future stopped you from moving on. You're waiting for the next hit of oxytocin that you were receiving during the love bombing. You found yourself in a world manufactured by the abuser, and you found yourself living in confusion and fear. Some common examples of coercive behaviour are isolating you from friends and family, monitoring your time, monitoring you via online communication tools like spyware, taking control over aspects of your everyday life, such as where you can go, who you can see, what you can wear, where and when you can sleep, depriving you of access to support services such as medical, repeatedly putting you down, saying things such as you're worthless, humiliating, degrading, or dehumanising you, controlling your finances, making threats or intimidating you. I've read articles and I've seen videos that say if you're in an abusive relationship, then get out. If you are in an abusive relationship, it's very likely that you don't realise you are, or the invisible chains are holding you there. It would be amazing if it was simple just to walk away, but it isn't. And it takes time to untangle from the invisible chains that held you there. Being a narcissist isn't against the law, but coercive control is. They use trauma bonding to keep you in a relationship with tools like gaslighting, which is a covert way of distorting another person's perception of reality. This is crazy making. It makes you think you're actually going cray-cray. Craziness on a whole different level. You can't trust yourself or your perception of reality. You start to believe the abuser's version of events, and slowly they begin to take over your life. Gaslighting was used to make you feel that there was something wrong with you. They used tactics to deflect their behaviour, making you feel you were mentally unstable or that you were overreacting. For people healing from these toxic relationships, this can cause emotional confusion and anxiety. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is really common coming out of these relationships, as well as adrenal fatigue. Eventually, you might start to wonder, or started to wonder, what was happening, and decide that you couldn't trust your own judgment. When you experience any form of anxiety or go through a prolonged period of stress, your brain goes into survival mode. You can't make decisions, you can barely look after yourself. Gaslighting or cognitive dissonance is a very unique experience for the individual. This is very different from a normal breakup, be it romantic, friendship, or with a family member or work colleague. Only a person who has been through this very specific form of abuse will understand what it is like and how deep the trauma runs. Personally, for me, I kept replaying the scenarios over and over in my mind, asking the same questions. What if and if only? I was able to replay the events and situations that didn't match up. The weird excuses of how I was jealous, I had trust issues. But understanding the cycle of abuse, the gaslighting, and other tactics that we used have helped me make sense of everything. This form of abuse penetrates on so many levels, so many layers. Your brain has been tricked into believing what you were told was the truth. And it takes time to de-traumatize. And it's so easy to slip down that dark hole when you're faced with new facts or new situations. You were never going to get the closure you needed, and this was part of the game. Gaslighting is really dangerous. It creates the feelings of insecurity, confusion, brain fog, self-doubt, fear, not feeling good enough, vulnerability and powerlessness. Your solicitor doesn't live with you. They're not watching what is happening in your life. You will need to highlight any manipulative behaviour to them. A narcissist is a person who behaves in a selfish way. They might be grandiose, have this sense of importance, and this insatiable need for admiration, wealth, power, or fame. They lack empathy and consideration for other people. Narcissists feel entitled to special treatment, easily offended, and readily harbour grudges. However, they're often very popular until you are no longer of use to them and they discard you. They are children in adults' bodies, unable to take responsibility for any of their actions. And anyone who disagrees with them or their unreasonable expectations might be subjected to their narcissistic rage. And there are 7 levels of anger, but the narcissistic rage goes from 0 to 7 in an instant. Narcissism is a personality disorder which is diagnosed by a mental health professional. And that is one of the reasons why I talk about emotional abuse. Narcissists can't take responsibility for their actions. And if you've been discarded by one, it's likely you took the blame for the breakdown of the relationship. So it's very unlikely that they would agree to an appointment for a diagnosis. A healthy person is able to see the mistakes they make and they try to correct them. Or they hold their hands up and say, yeah, I'm sorry. They do not do everything in their power to prove there's nothing wrong with them. putting the blame on another person. I refer to narcissists, sociopaths and psychopaths as emotional abusers or toxic people. They are much higher up on the narcissistic scale, but it's rare that one would get help. And under the narcissist, there are different types. You've got the overt, which is probably the one that jumps to mind the most, the grandiose sense of importance. But you've also got the covert. They're self-absorbed and they are as destructive in relationships, but they're just not as loud and obvious. And in fact, they are probably more dangerous. Then there's the cerebral narcissist, the know-it-alls, who use intellect and knowledge to secure their supply. Somatic, who flaunt their conquests and parade their possessions and show off their muscles. The inverted, they rely on other people for their emotional gratification. And they have the tendency to put other people first, looking for relationships that make them feel validated or needed. In a narcissist's mind, any attention is better than no attention. This means they are happy even if it's negative. And in fact, they often find it more enjoyable because if they can upset you, it means you still have deep emotions invested in them and the relationship. Some of the techniques used to bond you were changing your view of friends and family. And as the narcissist took over your life, they made up stories and you began to see the abuser as the only person you could trust. They might pull in their psychopathic traits. They are unable to form emotional attachments. They are unable to feel empathy for others. They can be very charming, however, they are manipulative and they gain the trust of people easily. And although they don't feel emotion, they've learnt to mimic it and they can appear normal to most people. Often psychopaths are educated, they have jobs, and some have families, while others have long-term relationships and others have both. Contrary to common belief, not all psychopaths are killers, but they are con artists. And due to their calm and charismatic nature, anything they do is carefully planned in detail. So I have some tips for you to deal with divorce. So being a narcissist isn't against the law, but coercive control is. Dealing with divorce, my first tip is to get 2 journals. One that you can use for your personal writing and healing. Maybe wake up in the morning and just write out what's happening, how you're feeling, get all those emotions out. And the second would be to record things that might be helpful during the divorce. And if you can't afford to, or you find it's, too much, flip it over. So you write personal on one side and then turn it over and write divorce things for your divorce on the other in the back. I do not recommend that you try to use any of their manipulative tactics against them. This usually backfires and you might cause more damage to yourself. Also record conversations, correspondence, and if and when this information is needed, you can then convert it into a document. It could contain childcare information, where they were late, or they've changed dates, or they were late with maintenance payments, or they've challenged you in certain ways. Write everything down. At a later time, if you need it, you might not need it, but if you do need it, it's there. You've got it as prompts, date, time, what happened, and you can remove the information, the emotion. Number 2 is notice the inconsistencies between what a person says and what they do. Tune into your body and your gut and see what they are doing and how it feels. You might sense that something feels off or not quite right. Validate your intuition. Write things down so you don't forget. Record these informations, or you could even take screenshots. My third thing would be read absolutely everything. They will hide information, and what you don't notice and contest is taken as agreement. If a document is emailed over to you, print it off and go through it with a pen, marking out areas that you agree with and then bullet point it in sections. Look at every single sentence I know it sounds as though it's going to take a lot of time, but honestly, they hide information. Do not skim read anything. Do not get distracted either by a loaded letter or email. It was designed to distract you. Somewhere else in there might be information that they're trying to hide. Number 4 is delete all emotion from your correspondence. If you get something that hurts you or upsets you, write it out. You can say, you bleep, bleep, bleep. This is blah, blah, blah. But this is for your eyes only. Writing out your emotions in longhand, pen to paper, is so healing. But stop it there. You rip it up or you delete it if it's on the computer. You then type the information. You take out all of the emotion. And this is a really good way to help start your healing, to heal the wounds and keep you grounded and help you see them for who they really are. Because it's quite easy when you're in those negotiations to feel sorry for them when they pull out the victim card. Number 5 is stop any unnecessary interactions with them, and where possible, cut them out of your life entirely, because they are putting your sanity at risk. Number 6 is to remember that they want full control over the divorce process. Make sure that you are aware of what you want and that you have got a list of what's negotiable and what isn't negotiable. Again, remember this is for your eyes only. It is not to be shared. Number 7 is to remember that they will try and paint a picture that they are good and kind. And they will create scenarios, and these then become their truth. They play the victim, and you might find yourself saying on more than one occasion, why can't other people see through this? They change everything around. What they did to you becomes what you did to them. And of course, you become the crazy person. And they do this by pushing you and trying to get a reaction from you. They know everything about you, and they use this information against you to their advantage. Number 8 is do not react. If you do, then let it be in the privacy of your own home or a safe space. They need you to react. They need people to see that you're this crazy person that they've told everybody about. Just keep reminding yourself of that. It's part of their plan. And remember to always trust your intuition. You might have turned it off during the relationship, but it won't have abandoned you. As I said, it isn't against the law to be a narcissist. Make sure you are not giving them the arena to perform in plain sight. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope that you are able to get the negotiation that you want. I'm going to put in the link below a copy of my workbook, Turn Broken into Your Superpower. Financial coercion is something that's really big coming out of these relationships. And I will put a link to that video in the description box below as well. If you want to find out more about working with me, you can visit my website. Again, I'll put all the links in the description box below. I'll put the links to both my books, Finding Lily and The A to Z of Emotional Abuse. I'm still in the process of getting the 3 Things You Should Never Do Divorcing a Narcissist published. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It just helps me get this information out a bit further. And if you want to reach out, please do. I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.